Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm John Halderson. I'm the chair of Dunbar Earthquake and Emergency Preparedness Society. We have just become a registered society as of December of last year, so now we're in the big time, supposedly. Anyways, tonight's presentation is pet first aid and helping be prepared with your pet during emergencies and disasters. Starting off is Liz Jang from Vancouver's Neighborhood Emergency Preparedness Program, part of the city's volunteer organization. So Liz, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm going to do a very short presentation because our guest speaker here, Cheryl, who will be presenting later, is doing the pet first aid and way more depth on pet preparedness. She works with the Canadian Disaster Animal Response Team, and they get lots of opportunities to go out to events. My experience with the City of Vancouver, I volunteer with the PET program. I'm also an emergency support staff volunteer, so we go to fires and smaller events that might be like a flood. We've gone to a crystal meth lab. We've gone to a homicide. So these are events that don't necessarily trigger big results, big response. But if you have a pet in one of these events, you might want to prepare. So the preparedness for an emergency could be for something small scale, and it could be for something larger. Recently, we had a cat. It was -8. I went with another volunteer to a fire downtown, and 2 cats were in the building. They were in smoke for a few hours, and then the fire department was able to retrieve them. One was completely frozen, and that one passed. So we were able to get the cat out. The evacuee was able to take the cat with them. We couldn't get emergency response for the cat that day. They took them to the SPCA the next day, and the cat didn't survive. So this is why we want to plan, and we want to know what our evacuation plan is that includes our pets. So it could be something as small as somebody in your building having a barbecue that starts a fire, or it could be as big as a level 2 or 3 where it's a whole apartment building or a large neighborhood. Okay, so why are we discussing pets? Because they're part of our family. And in the case of that gentleman, that cat was very dear to him. So we want to make sure that our 4-legged friends are included in our plans. One of the larger events that occurred that some of you might remember was the Hurricane Katrina in 2005. And that really got cities thinking about how they're going to respond with respect to pets. So there were possibly up to 150,000 pets that did not survive the event. I have neighbors who adopted 2 dogs. So dogs from Katrina that were not reunited were able to be adopted, and I have neighbors who have 2 separate families that have a dog. So that was a pretty significant event, and it changed how the city was going to respond. So as you can see from the slides, 30% of evacuees didn't want to leave with their pets not able to come, and they refused to go to a reception center because the reception centers did not accept pets. So as a result, the city has changed how it accepts pets into reception centers and group lodging. So this would be your generic slide if you went to a neighborhood emergency preparedness talk through the city. They do some for people with disabilities, seniors, general, and there's the pet one. And I'm just briefly covering the topics that I've bolded here. So the pet grab and go kit. So sorry, go back. Emergency kits, you have your grab and go kit for yourself and every member in your family, including your pet. Then you have your home kit. Then you have your car kit, your school kit, your work kit. And then every kit could have a first aid component. And in the back, there are some handouts. And Christian's going to put a copy, or he has put a copy in the chat. So this covers some of the basics. So going into your grab and go for your animal, these are the suggestions. So when I came out of that fire the other night, we didn't have any supplies for that gentleman to take with him to his hotel. So the next morning I went and got a kitty litter box, some litter, some food, and I brought it to the hotel. And those are things you wouldn't think of, but you will need them if you manage to take your pet with you. Dogs, depending on how stressed you are, they'll be stressed. You might not think your dog is nippy, but if they're stressed, a muzzle is a good idea. And I'm sure Cheryl will talk about all of this. Sorry, Heather. Okay. So then in your shelter in place, your home kit, some pet food, some water, some pet supplies. Familiar food for yourself and for your pet. I volunteered with the 300-something pets that came from Afghanistan. They were out in a hangar out at the airport, and those animals were eating food that was donated. And every time you walked, you had to be prepared to pick up diarrhea, because almost every dog had diarrhea because their food was constantly changing. They were stressed. So my understanding, and I'm sure Heather can talk about this, is if you decided to pack this, you could either do pumpkin puree or the equivalent in pumpkin powder to help your dog with diarrhea. So that's an option that I didn't know about, but that's one way to prevent them from having constant diarrhea. And then with cats, they don't necessarily like to drink, so wet food would be the way to go. And any supplies you put into your kit, make sure you rotate them out because they all have a shelf life. So for your work plan, these are some of the concerns you might have, but who's going to look after your pet if you're unable to return? In the Lytton fires, one gentleman stayed behind and he was throwing food into windows of houses where the dogs were too aggressive. And he was looking after chickens and maintaining all the animals. And then when he came to the reception center, we couldn't give him any services because he did not evacuate. But he was providing a service to the Lytton community by feeding all the animals that were left behind. So if you're unable to be at home with your pets, do you have an arrangement with somebody in your neighborhood? Will they know that you have a grab and go kit? Will they know where your carrier is? Those supplies. Then you need to also have your pet trained. And training a cat for carrier sounds like a disaster. But I've read there are versions of methods online. There's YouTube that you can see. Yeah, we had a rabbit and she wasn't the greatest either in a carrier, but I think cats would be more dangerous. So then finally, during the event, if your pet's inside, keep them inside. Cats, especially in the fires that I've responded to where they disappear, they go into the craziest places, like inside the sofa bed. So even if you have good intentions, you might not get the cat until after the event is over. It might be a few days after the event is over before someone can get the cat out. So if you can, take your pet with you. If you can't, post a sign so the rescue workers know what to expect. Do not tie or cage your animal. If you can put out water, put it out in several bowls in case one gets knocked over. Put out food and hope that they'll get through the event. But do bring your pets if you can. So then again, there's the pumpkin affiliation. Okay. After the event, expect that your pets are going to be stressed. Keep them near you. Don't let them outside by themselves. And just expect strange behavior. Finally, to practice your plan means doing it. Some people do it every time the clocks change, but update your plan if you can every year. Include your pets in your plan and go through their grab and go to make sure that their supplies are current. Yeah. So I'm hoping people will take a moment to think about how they can prepare. And can we do a few questions and then?
Yeah. Anybody have any questions for Liz in the in-person audience? Any questions from those online?
Yes, we've got one. Linda.
Okay.
Yes, Linda, speak.
Yeah, go ahead, Linda, with your question.
Oh, we can't hear you now. Sorry. Linda, we can't hear you. Linda, can you hear us? No. She's gone.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay. So now we get to do first aid. So those of you online, if you have a pet, bring it to you if they're somewhat eager to participate. And I'm going to pass it off to Heather. Yeah.
My foggy glasses again. Audio okay? Awesome. Hi, so my name is Heather Ferguson. I have been involved in emergency preparedness since about the mid-1970s. I started off in our youth programs with St. John Ambulance. That's actually that's my day job. I'm the Learning Development Officer for St. John Ambulance, BC Yukon. In my spare time and my volunteer gig, I am with the Canadian Disaster Animal Response Team, and been doing disaster response with animals since the mid-90s with that. So yeah, I've been involved in quite a few fairly large scale events. Obviously 2017, I was deployed for 70 odd days, balancing that out, lots of apartment fires, wildfires, floods, all sorts of things. So I have a little bit of background that way. And I guess if we're going to queue up whatever is next, I got the clicker. See, I do it myself. What queues up first?
Try downwards.
Try downwards. You sequential them?
Oh, where's yours? Is yours in the same presentation?
No,
Oh,
I sent it to you in a PowerPoint, in an email. That's okay. I can just talk. I'm good at just doing that. We make it up as we go along, and nobody ever knows the difference. You see, if you can't baffle them with your brilliance, we all know how that one ends. All right. So, anyways, with the emergency response, my presentation was going to be much the same as Liz's, other than I was going to expand on a few things, such as the amount of water required. Because, of course, that is, people say 4 liters a day for humans. That's for our entire consumption. Animals, you're looking, depending on the animal, anywhere from about 60 to 100 mils per kilogram of body weight, roughly. Now, some animals do require more. Rabbits, for example, require about a third more, just because of the way their digestive system, they take in so much dry food like the hay and the pellets and things that they need more fluid to get it down. So they do require a little bit more that way. The nice thing is that where if we drink water out of a puddle or a creek side here in Vancouver, it's going to be pretty disastrous for us intestinally. Whereas a lot of animals, they can adapt to that and it's not as devastating. The only problem with urban-based water is the contaminants. And especially in the flood system or a flood event, that doesn't hold true as well because, of course, again, of the contaminants. Flood water goes through a lot of nasty places. You can think about going through, for example, a gas station, what it would pick up. Going through any type of industrial area, what it would pick up. So just counting, there's lots of water around, we're flooded. Don't let your animals be taking water sources from there because some of the impurities, even if you boil the water, will not get rid of some of the impurities. So we have to be very, very, very careful. And considering what's heading our way, floods may be in the future. So we have that going on. The other thing is talking about what else to include in your grab and go bags. So we would really find it helpful from our responders' point of view, is if you had current pictures of your pets. And we don't want the cute pictures. We would love a picture of you with your animal because people unfortunately go shopping during disasters and they'll say, that's my cat, that's my dog. And you're like, and animals will not always come up to you. How many times have you had your animal be ticked off at you because you left them at home? And you say, hello there, and they're like, yeah. And they're like, and you're like, but, and they're like, no, that's enough. So they may act aloof, they may hunker down. And so we're looking at this, expecting this great reunion, and it's not happening. So is that your pet? That animal belong to you? You were evacuated out in the middle of the night. You've got the knock on the door with the 10-minute warning. You may not have your identification with you, or you may not have anything like that. Now, phones nowadays are a great place to keep all your stuff. So if you come up to me and say, Heather, that is my Burmese cat with a notch in the ear. See, here's my picture. You look the same. I'll go, great, here's your cat. But be prepared that if we can't absolutely prove it's yours, we will let you get mad at us first before we give an animal to the wrong person. So, and people do get mad at us. They do. And it's understandable. It is understandable. So a picture with you and your pet, also with the markings. So if they have a little heart on their side, show a side with that because we can identify it. People say, oh, you gotta see my cat, it's black. Like, okay. Lots of black cats. And they said, well, except for that little bit of white. So where's the white? Well, it's just kind of sort of on their side. Okay, where kind of sort of is that marking? So pictures are great, like mug shots. That's what we want. We don't want the cute ones, we want the mug shots. The other thing you should be keeping in there is all their, if they have a tattoo, what's the number? What's the microchip number? Do they have any medical problems? Where do you have extra medication for them, and where do you keep the medication? A lot of times when the firefighters go into the apartment buildings after the event, after everything's cooled down, they'll come up and say, okay, we'll get some stuff out for you. Where is it? So where do you keep your medications? Most people keep them in a spot. Where's your animal's medications? Traditionally on top of the fridge. It's kind of a catch-all place. So anywhere, someplace in one spot where the firefighters will willingly go and just grab it. They do a fantastic job, but they need a little bit of help. Now, the other thing is that you can get, if you need some of directions or keeping the animals' pictures or their medical files, is they used to have a program, it's called the Vial of Life. And you put it in a vial and a container, and you put it in the fridge, and you put a little sticker that said all the medication, everything you need is in the fridge. Because all the firefighters will go to the fridge first, and they'll look on the fridge and see if there's any information there for them. Because our fridges are sort of our communication hub in a lot of families. So that's a really good place because sometimes you're not home during a disaster. You see that, and it's heartbreaking. You see it so many times. You're at an event and they've closed the roads down, and people say, yeah, I've got to get in there. I've got all my animals in there, and I'm sorry, no. I'm sorry, no. So it can happen, So the thing is make it as easy as possible for people to help you. That's really important. So emergency contacts, veterinary clinics, whatever is current with that. As I said, medications identification, all that kind of in a Ziploc baggie. Have a copy in the grab and go bag, have a copy in the fridge. Just make it easy so people can identify with that. So that's kind of with that. What else I'm going to add with the, grab and go bags. Just out of curiosity, how many people really are into the rubber tubs, grab and go bags? How many hands do you have? How many crates do you need to carry with your cats or your dogs or your kids or your family as you're clambering among debris? Exactly, you can. We call it an evacuation sack. But a lot of times if you put all the real essential stuff in a backpack, because that way you've got the essential stuff, and you can have a spare backpack for the animals, for the smaller animals, and you can carry one in front. Their claws will go through though. We've got a couple scars to prove it. But think about portability. And that was it. Everybody knows most cats hate crates. So don't bring the crate out in a disaster. Do not bring the crate out. Get the animal, if you can, into an enclosed area. If they hate going in a crate, have some dedicated pillow sacks, because what does your cat or your rabbit or your dog, how afraid they are of a pillowcase? Does it mean anything to them? So you go up there and there you are. Do, how you doing? Oh, good puppy, your kitty, your bunny. And it's just, and they're like, well, your laundry. And then you're just like, into the pillowcase. Pillowcase goes into the crate. Problem solved. They won't like you very much for a while, but that's okay. That's allowed. That's allowed. Yes, the animals will get diarrhea. Animals that are coming into the country and stuff. Pack the stuff that is basically McDonald's for your dogs and cats and animals. The stuff that they love. Even if you think it's garbage, you know, it's great. You may want to get a little container of Parmesan cheese and put it in there, the grated stuff, because you sprinkle that on the water or a little bit on the dry food. They tend to really like that because it's a big treat. So that's a really good way of getting them to eat. So you do stuff like that. What else was I going to talk about? I don't know.
For get a dog, like a dog like this, like, just taking them on a leash or
Leashes are great. Actually, preferably is a body harness, and you want to be mean with your collar because most people put collars on too loose. And the 2 or 3 finger rule is great for comfort. But if you've ever seen a dog fight and flip its head out of a collar, you want it so it's not. You're not obviously going to put it so tight that it's restricting the airway, but you want it tight enough so you pull it up. It's going to fit right underneath the jaw and the ears, and not come up. And have a long leash, because you can take that long leash, wrap it around the body when it's still connected to the collar, and make a makeshift harness that way. Again, a little a little discomfort, but a lot of safety. And and especially if you get evacuated out, they're in the car. You can hook it through the body harness if they have one. You can hook it through the seat belt and just keep them in that spot. Because if it's hot or whatever and the windows are down, they want to evacuate out of the car. You get to where the reception center is, you go to open the door, and especially if you've got one that likes to pile drive out of the car, you want to keep them, again, as safe as possible. And if any of you work for ESS, volunteer with ESS, don't be putting your hands in front of animals' faces. Because you like my little puppy dog? So people come into the reception center with their little puppy dog, and they come out and you go, oh. So you go to reach out and touch the little puppy dog and go, I'm so sorry, you had to get evacuated. And then you get that. So, it's really, they go from, I'm so scared, to I'm going to rip your face off right now. This is what's going to happen right now. So little teaching point, if you're volunteering and stuff, please keep your fingers and keep kids away from dogs. We had one event where the volunteers were dealing with the children. They said, we'll take them over to the pet area to play with the animals. And we're like, yeah, no, really no, really, really no. So just be aware if you're in that kind of a volunteer situation. Alrighty with that. You have a furrowed brow.
Yeah, what about like around here, it's having horses potentially an issue, might be quite realistic. So,
Absolutely. Actually, yeah, we have that.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh,
Repeat for people online.
My bad. Asking about horses. So here's a quick question. How many people have access, or if you have horses around here? Seen them? They're around? Yeah. How many, how about backyard chickens? Vancouver have backyard chickens? Yeah. Okay. I wish I could. Silly place where I live. And so what else? Sorry? It was a pot-bellied pig in Markham. Pot-bellied pigs, yes, the teacup ones that grow to be 50 pounds, yes. So the question is, what do we do with those? If you see them, if they come up, it's hard to get them into a reception center. But what you can do is, in an emergency, if you see them out or moving and they have a halter and you can safely, and you're comfortable with getting a hold of them, you could ask either search and rescue or fire, anybody who has a significant size rope, just to tether between 2 trees, and you can basically do a stakeout. And a lot of horses are what they call ground tied. They're used to that. And if they're really flighty, then you can fit a blindfold over them.
and make sure everyone stays away.
Exactly, because they can kick either way. Though they do tell us for a blindfold, a 38 B cup works just well. We have a good picture of that, but unfortunately we don't have it here. So, but again, and you don't want to feed them. When we evacuate out horses, they only get grass hay because anything else can give them an upset stomach. You don't want them to colic or anything like that. Same with dogs. We feed the lowest, not the lowest, but the middle quality food. Anything that's too high in protein or really good can give animals, if you shift their diet, so we keep them really, really basic on the food. Again, not to be mean, but just to keep them so we don't have to scrape up the poops all the times. Yes, kind of hard with that way. All right, so what else with emergency preparedness? Prep. That's all I can say. And think about the pause. If you have a bigger animal, the glass over the floor, if it's an earthquake, wading through water, lots of stuff under the water. So there's lots of hazards. So booties, you can make emergency booties out of duct tape if you have to. It's better than a cut pad. Because of course, open cuts in flood water and things like that is not a good mix. It's kind of icky. That's an official term, by the way, icky. All righty. What are we queued up on here now? Oh, okay. You didn't get it in the email?
No, John couldn't find it.
Oh, because it went through. That's okay.
Did you send it to John?
I did. I've got a stick if that would help. A thumb drive, sorry.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah.
Can I walk this way? Walk this way, talk this way? That's okay. I can talk it through this too. I'm good at that as well. At least I think I put it in my purse. Oops, no, I was humming there and I can't start singing. Is it this one? Let's see if you can.
Yeah.
Should say pet first aid on there, but that's okay. All right, so we'll get going. So how many people have taken a pet first aid or a first aid course at all? Awesomeness. There we go. You giggle, John. All right, you should have in front of you a handout. Actually, two handouts. There's one on there. We might have to do some more photocopies, not sure. One says, what does it say on there? What to do, how to know if your animal is needs veterinary care. That's one handout there. And the other handout was, and that was from the Davis University, one of the biggest veterinary teaching hospitals that they use for their handouts. And the other one is an introduction to companion animal first aid by Heather Ferguson. Thank you all very much. Alrighty. So that was and then the next one down should be.
That one?
No.
Is it pet stuff?
That one,
That
2016.
All right.
There he is. He's magic. Magic. So anyway, it's no real difference with first aid. If you've taken a St. John ambulance first aid course, you're in luck. Oh, what's that for a plug? And if you or any first aid course, we all know the basics. So does everybody know their alphabet? So what does A stand for? Airway. What does B stand for? And what does C stand for? So now you know first aid. Very simple. Very simple. Because we can. Because we can. You know? Try the clicker now. Oh, there we go. So I'm just going to skim through. This is my whole presentation. We don't have time for that a lot. This is Yelf. She was my, she's passed now, but she was my yellow lab, who was my long-suffering puppy dog. Psychedelic. There we go. So you're going to see her in there a few times. So that's okay. So anyway, so with first aid, the first thing we talk about in any situation is safety. How many times have you seen somebody see a dog, see a cat, see a horse, see an iguana, see a ferret, whatever, and they're like, oh, you poor thing, and they go storming up to them, right up over top of them. Camera's there. Let's go storming up to the camera, right up over top of them, and just hover. The instinctive reaction to that kind of what they consider a threat display by you can be aggression. If you look how animals actually greet each other, unless it's aggression, they rarely come head on. They tend to sort of side. So if you really want to introduce yourself politely and be non-threatening, when we approach, you'll see us actually not come straight up and over top, but we'll go very low eye contact, what we call a soft eye, move to the side, and just sort of turn our side. Now, if something's coming at you with ears back and eyes blazing, this won't apply. Okay, but if you're in just a meet and greet kind of situation, then yeah, soft eye, just turn to the side, loose shoulders, loose body language, and make yourself as non-threatening as possible. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. And Yelf used to work for cookies. The older she got, the more it cost, because she figured this whole thing out really quick. Okay. We know what first aid is. Muzzling, part of the safety is muzzling. There's lots of different ways to muzzle. There's commercial muzzles, all sorts of stuff. Push comes to shove, grab your jacket, look like you're walking by, no eye contact, and they're looking at you. Then they just take your whole jacket or a blanket and just toss it right over their head. And what a lot of animals do, as soon as their head and everything's covered, they freeze. And that will give you time to get in there, and if you need to, and get a hold of them. And this includes your own animals as well, because any animal, just like any human, can be pushed to a breaking point. And the more scared and the more threatened they are, the more they will fight. So you've got to be a little bit careful. Now, we don't advocate muzzling if they're vomiting, because obviously they can choke. If they're having difficulty breathing, maybe there's fractures around the face, that sort of thing. And as a pet owner, the choice to muzzle is always your own. It's always going to be your choice whether or not you want to do that. If you have one of we call the flat-faced breeds, like the bulldogs and that sort of thing, there are commercially made muzzles that you can get that will fit. We'll kind of go with that. We talked about this. Boxes. We have caught so many animals in disasters, cats, with boxes. They just can't resist. You put a box in there and they're just like, okay. We're like, all right. It has to be a box. It can't be a crate. It's got to be a box. And they go in there and you just sit there and crinkle the paper a little bit and they're like, what? Kind of fun. So what is normal? So we have in here, there's some normal values. The handout says, how do you know if your animal needs to go to the vet? Has some list of normal values. You notice they're probably going to be different. It's much like human medicine. You can have 4 very reliable reference books, and it'll all be slightly different based on the bias of the researcher. So it might be a couple of beats one way or the other, but it's pretty much the same. So when we're going through this, I'm not going to be able to go through all of this. This is one of the more, we do the advanced course. But the big one we're going to look at is going to be the scene evaluation risk assessment, which I was just talking about. And we're going to talk about the primary survey, which is the airway, breathing, and circulation. That's the one we're going to kind of focus on. So we talked about this already. What happened? Is the area safe? How many of them are injured? Again, we see that unfortunately in wildfire where a herd's been overrun. You go into an apartment fire and you have a mother with kittens. We did one where it was an apartment and we took out 12 animals out of the apartment. Everything from a bearded dragon to a hamster to a mom with kittens. So there's lots of different scenarios with that. And who do I have to help me in transportation decisions? Because we don't have 911 for the pets. Now, Cedar, if you call us and you need something, we'll come out 24/7, as long as my phone's working. Well, I did that update where suddenly all your voice messages on the phone now become like printed out transcripts. And not only that, but I didn't know it did that, and I didn't know how to get into them. So I'm like, I felt very illiterate. So, we have to have that kind of a transport going. How are you going to get the animals to the vets? You have a 100-pound dog. How are you going to get that? And and you're dependent on the bus. What does that look like? So that's all part of your emergency planning. This is a very basic flow chart that I made up because people say, what order do I do things? And that is going to be on page 6 is there. And this is just to help you figure out what's going on. Because you know your animal best. You go up to your budgie, and budgies are notorious. You go up to your budgie and they look fine, but they can be very ill. And there's just only very subtle indications that they're ill. And then you go back 5 minutes later and they're on the bottom of the cage dead. Because they're prey animals, just like cats. They're prey animals. They don't like to show they're injured until the last minute. So you have to be really able to assess and figure out what's going on. We're not going to talk about secondary survey. We're not going to go a lot into the treatment or ongoing care. We're going to talk a little bit about airway obstruction. So airway obstruction is very simple. Can they breathe or can they not breathe? Pretty much it. And if they're breathing, are they breathing good or are they breathing bad? So how many people here have heard a human have a airway obstruction? And did we all go leaping out of our chair and running over there as they're coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing and coughing? Some people are shaking their heads. Why not, you cruel people? You're not hard, It's because we listened to them coughing and coughing and coughing, and it didn't scare us because they were breathing, and deep inside we knew that. But have you ever heard the person that goes that weird cough and they're going, you're like, oh, that caught my attention. So same thing with these furry things. Is what they're doing scaring me? So if they're making a deep breath and going, cough, 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 or doing a hairball hack or whatever they're doing, you're like, oh yeah, here we go again. Not on the carpet, Or you're going, oh my gosh. We talk about it on humans. How do we know if somebody's feeling poorly? Where do we tend to look? Eyes and? Yeah, so given my complexion right now, am I healthy or unhealthy? I'm going to say I'm healthy. What would make me look unhealthy? What would happen? Pale. If I couldn't breathe, then what color would I be going? So on our fur faces, where do we look for the blue and the white and the pale and all that stuff? We're going to look at the gums. And if their gums are blue or their gums are really super pale, then we're going to go, ooh, look at that. That's not good. The ones that can fool us, of course, are the dogs and cats that have the dark gums, the chows, and things like that. And you're like, oh, then you can look at the pink part of the eye. You can look at hand sanitizer. Good. There we go. All right, so that's what we're looking with that. So if it's just partial, they're going to cough and cough and cough. If it's complete, then we're going to do abdominal thrusts. And abdominal thrusts are pretty simple. So if everybody could grab their pet and stand up, please. Just keep your pet on the table. I don't want to drop that because, that would be horrible. I have my doggy. There he is. So this is, now if they're little, or you could have my ferret. We could ferret out some information. There you go. There you go. You can sit them up like this, get their head on your shoulder, find their hip bones. Now they don't have belly buttons, but you can run it in till you're in the middle where you would think the belly button would be. And this is just like you do for the humans. Pull it in to the tummy and push up towards the top of the head. So you want to get under the rib cage. If they're standing, you can do the same thing. You can get your hand under there and push up towards the top of the head. So you're going in under the tummy and right up, just an abdominal thrust. They will drop to the ground very quickly. And I learned this the hard way. My Labrador choked and then collapsed and I teach this, pardon me. And so I went down exactly as I taught everybody to do. Say, okay, you got to sit there and get your hands right in the bend. Brace the shoulders from the back, get your fist in there and push in and then up as hard as you can. Bury your knuckles right underneath the rib cage. And they're conscious, so you're going to keep doing that. The only thing I didn't take into consideration for poor old Jake, who is a Labrador, is linoleum floor and fur. He scooted about 10 feet, head first right into the cabinets. I felt really bad, but I cleared the airway. But I felt very bad for him. So now I teach secure the back legs, hold on to the fore and tail, and then do the same thing. Get in there and do those abdominal thrusts. Once they pass out, if they go unconscious, you can turn them onto their back and do the abdominal thrusts the same way. You can try chest thrusts if you think it'll work. And I'll show you CPR in just a minute. And you do it just like CPR. There's no absolute incorrect method because for humans, we do abdominal thrusts and back blows. Back blows into the middle of the animal's back doesn't really work because they have that spine down the middle. So you can try the back blows, or you can try on the side to try and clear the airways. So a combination of abdominal thrusts and back blows can try. So there's different methods. Once they go unconscious, you can go in straight into chest thrusts, just like we do with humans, which is chest thrusts. Again, if you feel it's not effective, you want to try something different, you can try also the abdominal thrusts. We've had good luck, really good luck with clearing the airway that way. And this is effective for all, mostly dogs, cats, rabbits, I'm told. Birds are always a challenge. I don't know enough about aviary first aid to give good advice about that. Not my forte. All right. One thing this is particularly for dogs is if they with sticks or bones, they can get across the back of their teeth. And it's basically stimulating their gag reflex. So they can look like they're choking, but they're not. You can see you can see they're breathing, their gums aren't changing color. The risk factor here is if you want to go in and take it out, there is a possibility of you getting bitten. And it's maybe not even an intentional bite. It can be what we call a fang. It's like they're moving their head and you just happen to get in the way. Or you can be like one of the Weimaraners we had way back when I used to work on the ships. I worked on a lumber car carrier with Environment Canada for a few years. And they had a Weimaraner on board. Captain wanted a dog. And he would get bones across there and he'd just come up going, with his mouth open, he'd just reach in and pop the bone out. He's like, thank you. And wander off again. Saxon, good English name. All right. So again, talk about the complete airway obstruction. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see a bit of the blue there of the tongue and the gums. A little bit. That's Yelf doing artificial respiration, one of our Annie dolls. I was teaching a level 3 class, and I said, even my dog can do CPR, folks, come on now. So I brought her in one day, and she was showing them how to do artificial respiration. So that's just blowing in, and we're going to not talk about that. We're going to talk about CPR. There's been changes in CPR for animals. They've based it now not just on body weight, but on the shape of the chest, because that affects the placement of the heart and how our compressions affect it. So I'm just going to, it is in your booklet there. Normal chest, this is a keel-chested dog. Did I go one too far? No, maybe I didn't. Okay. So for keel-chested, that's where they're like a Doberman or a sighthound, where the chest comes down more like a keel, like this. And you want to be on the lower third of the chest, a little bit lower. If you have a barrel-chested dog that looks more like a human chest, so that's your bulldogs, your Frenchies, that sort of thing, you want them on their back and pushing straight down. And you're basically just lining up on their armpits, and we'll show you how to do that in a minute. And just a regular type dog, like a Labrador or a Collie, those sort of things, little higher up, more middle upper third of the chest. And if you have, excuse me, just going to drink for a second. I would like it noted that this is just water. Just saying. If you have a smaller dog or smaller cat or a kitten, you can use a squeeze method, but your hands do get tired after a little bit, so you just have to keep switching your hands back and forth. So that's your CPR methods. Absolutely. So here we go. Yeah, we can do that in just a second. But we're going to do the big doggies first, big animals first. So everybody stand up again. Did you know it was going to be Pilates tonight? A little bit of chair aerobics. So we're going to take you through how to figure out how to do CPR. Is everybody ready to work with me here? Yeah. Okay, here we go. So somebody goes, help, 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 and you come running up and go, oh, can I help you? And they said, oh, my dog, cat, gerbil, hamster, not a horse, fell into the pond. We found them there. So you go, oh dear. So you pull them out of the pond, you lay them down, and you're going to look at them and you're going to say, hey, buddy, can you hear me? So I want everybody to pat them really hard and on the butt and to go down and pinch their toes at the back. And the reason you're pinching on the toes at the back is they decide to bite you, you're here and they're there. That makes sense? Okay, so then you're going to come up and say, oh, then you're going to take the mouth, the neck, you're going to extend it a little bit. You're going to make sure the tongue is forward. You're going to put your hand in front of the nose and the mouth, and you're going to feel about 5-10 seconds. And people say, well, you usually put your ear down there for people. Yeah, people don't usually bite you. So, so we're going to feel. And we can have a hand here on the chest. We want to feel the rise of the chest, the whole 9 yards. About 5-10 seconds worth. And you go, oh, they're not breathing. So based on the history, we're going to start CPR. So it's really simple. So we're going to line ourselves at the back. We're going to figure out what kind of a chest they are. Are they a barreled chest? Are they a keeled chest? What are they? And so we're going to take the upper leg, figure out where the elbow is, because you want to be about the 5th or 6th rib, and that's about in line with the elbow. And you're going to take a hand, I don't care which one it is, and you're going to decide, is it keel-chested? Is it barrel-chested? Is it a more round-chested dog? You're going to put one hand down, you're going to put the other hand on top, you're going to keep your fingers up, you're going to lock your elbows. Now, it's hard to do on the table, so I want you to scoot your animals right to the edge of the table, because when you do this, I want you feel like you're pushing straight down. And we're going to go straight up and down for 30 compressions at a rate of 100 to 120 beats per minute. And yes, it can be staying alive if you really want it to. Okay, everybody ready? And 1, 2, 3, 4. Good king Wenceslas lost looked out o'er the feast of steam. Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? I hope you guys are counting, because I'm not. Are we at 30 yet? I'm just clapping here. Are we at 30? So now we're at 30. Now you have a choice. If you're not comfortable coming down and putting some breath in, then don't. It's called compression-only resuscitation. It works well with humans as well as animals. You will just keep continuing doing chest compressions. Please, when we do this, do not put your mouths on these fabric animals, because I do spray them with Lysol and clean them up, but they are fabric and there's no way of really cleaning them well. So anyways, that out, push the tongue in a little bit, close the mouth, wrap your fingers around there, and do 2 gentle breaths. You go 1, and you want to watch the chest go into the nose. And then you're going to do a second breath and watch the chest go. You want to do it low and slow. Takes about a second. Did you say into the nose? Into the nose. Yeah. Just a nice, even breath. Just like we breathe. You don't want to go, because we don't breathe that way. You don't sit there and go, and that's not how we breathe. So nice and easy is what we want. And you're going to keep doing chest compressions and breaths until you have results. This can be done on the way to the vet. Obviously not by you if you're driving, which is a bad idea. It's kind of hard to drive and do chest compressions at the same time. And kind of go from there. So that is the same. Now, we're going to talk about the little animals. Same thing. Fingers at the bottom of that elbow, fingers at the top, 5th or 6th rib. Make sure the head is open. Make sure the airway is straight, and you're just going to be doing this. Or if your hands are getting tired, you've got some of the smaller dogs, you're going to put them down on the ground. I only held them up so you could see. You can do 2 fingers, just like we do with babies, or 2 fingers, or 1 hand. whatever you need to do to get that chest down about a third. Are we okay with that? All righty. So that is your basic CPR and choking. So that, remember we talked about when the dog or the animal passes out because they've got a full airway obstruction, and you want to do chest thrusts to help clear that airway out. You're going to do your 30 chest compressions. You are going to look in the mouth for that obstructed airway, because where do you want that object to end up? So it may just sit in the mouth. Jake, his cleared. It was a burnt hamburger bun. He's a Labrador. You know, and it was, you know how burned bread just kind of cements, and it cemented in his throat. And we popped it out, and we both sat back and went, oh, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I was like, and he jumps to his feet, and I think, oh, fight or flight, he's going to take off. He goes for the hamburger bun again. I was like, seriously, dude? Yeah, man. That's what I said. I was like, oh gosh, too. So we do that. So shock, again, is in your books. Anytime an animal or a person gets injured or ill, they will go into shock. Some show it more than others. The weird thing about cats is their heart tends to slow down instead of speed up, which is weird because cats just do things like that. But they can have the pale gums and the whole 9 yards. We're not bleeding. Oops, sorry. Internal bleeding. It's going to be very hard to see anything because of the fur, but look at the back passages and anywhere the body has an opening, like the the urethra or the anus or the lungs or the nose or the ears. If you see any blood coming out of there that shouldn't be, that's bad. So you want to get that taken care of, or sensitivity, or if it looks like they're bloating up, starts sounding a bit like a watermelon in there, especially with a history of something happening. Not a good plan. And there's nothing we can do for it other than getting them to the vet as quick as possible. Now, external bleeding. I did give you folks a few bandages here. What part of the body would you like to see learn how to bandage? What's a common thing for dogs and cats? Foot. Glad, that's a good choice. All right. So what stops bleeding is pressure. Yeah. And Jake learned he had my late mom wrapped right around his little paw. 90-pound Labrador going, oh, Grandma, I hurt myself. Oh, poor baby. Let's get you on the couch. We'll give you some cookies. You guys, hurt myself again. So anyways, you got this bit of gauze, and you got a wrap there. You got something, there you go, one of these. So let's learn how to do a very basic wrap. So you may open this, just open it up. And we said, the thing is, dogs and cats sweat through their feet, through their paws. So this is going to get pretty damp. So you take it and you apply pressure to wherever it needs to be. And then I think I gave you a larger dressing. I think. Did I do that? Yeah, and a little pouch there. There you do. Oh, I was going to show you that improvised muzzle. All right, and it just goes over top like that. Then you're going to take your bandage. You're going to hold it like this. And you're just going to take it, and it doesn't you want to keep the two, if you can, the two nails, the toenails, you want them exposed, because if you wrap it too tightly and it starts to swell, the toenails, if you look at them, are usually together, right? And if it starts to swell, if you push on it, you see them start to separate out. So that's one of your warnings that this bandage might be too tight. We want to try and keep it exposed. All right. Don't do that. Bad, stuffy dog. So you just do a couple wraps. It's very simple. And then you're just going to take it and come up over on one side of those two little toenails. And you're going to wrap it around the base again. And then you're going to come up on the other side of those two toenails. And you're just going to keep, and then wrap it around. And you wrap it around. And you come up, and you're going to put as much pressure on here as you feel you can safely do, just doing this sort of figure 8 kind of wrap. You sort of see that? Now, how many people have ever had a problem keeping a bandage on a dog or a cat's foot? All right? Some people are,
Lots of trouble keeping them on myself.
well, this might work for you too. So, one thing that you should be in your first aid kit is a pair of pantyhose. Because you know they tell you get the stitches and they go home and they say keep the paw dry. And you're like, so what you do is you get pantyhose and you cut one leg off of them. And you get a plastic bag. And can I get you to be my lovely assistant for a moment? See if all you have to do is hold them like that. That's all you have to do, I promise. There you go. Just like this a little bit. So what you do is you take your plastic bag that they tell you to keep on the animal's foot, and you put it up there like that. You just reach a hand and sort of hold that. Then you take your pantyhose. And you go right up there. Take the hole that's being cut off. Turn it a little bit to the camera. Not my back. I got a lovely back. There you go. And you just feed it down through. Make this fit with a bit of duct tape. And now they can go out and do their business, and you can come back, and it's good. If you do an ear bandage, and you got the ears all bandaged up, and you know, one good head shake, this is for cats as well, and it's gone, take the other part of your pantyhose. Yep, not in the mouth. And you just bring it up over top. Sorry, camera. Sorry, folks at home. Bad presenter. Not very experienced doing this with that. And it'll hold all your dressings in place. So, thank you. So we have that. And I see it is, oh, and I was going to show you the improvised muzzle. If you're out in the street, grab a coffee cup, cut the bottom off, and it's a great improvised muzzle. All righty, folks. So, sorry I got a little bit carried away there, John. My apologies. Is there any? Now, I am going to be for our folks here. I'm going to be. I'll hang out for a little bit if you wish. But do we have any questions? And remember to repeat them this time.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
How effective have they found this CPR for pets?
So, how effective is CPR for pets? A lot of that depends on, unfortunately, knowledge for your lay rescuers or by rescuers, and depending on the circumstance. It can be very successful if it's like humans, if it's implemented very, very quickly, and you're not afraid to be assertive with your chest compressions. Good, effective chest compressions. So right now for humans, and the reason we can sort of equate that is when they test out a lot of the techniques on how to do different changes of CPR, they use a lot of animal models to practice on. So you're looking at, if you're lucky, 7 to 12%. But again, it depends. You know, a lot of that not being successful is just like humans. Is people are afraid to just get in there and do it because a bit of bystander syndrome. Yes.
Should we be breaking ribs?
Okay, should we be breaking ribs when doing CPR? It's not a should, but it's entirely expected. You know, the thing is that if you think about it, usually in humans, ribs end up breaking because if you look at the demographic of the people we're usually doing CPR on, you know, it's usually older people. And we're a little bit more brittle. We don't bend like we used to. Animals tend to be a bit more resilient. But the thing is, has anybody ever known anybody here who's had broken ribs? Did they die? No. Do broken ribs kill people? No. So how would you think you would like to go home or take the animal home? With broken ribs or not? So the choice is, yes, we don't want to break ribs. Our goal is not to. But if it happens, it is not going to lead to the demise of either humans or animals. And it's a big fear that everybody has. So good question. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, we have a question online.
Ooh, good.
Laura, could you unmute?
Laura, if you can unmute and then ask your question.
Nobody ever asked me to unmute. If we're waiting, could you just roll up your bandages and such, please? Thank you.
Laura? Okay, I guess no question. Anybody else? Anybody else for question? Yeah.
You mentioned that I think a lot of us know putting documents on the fridge, but you said inside the fridge too. Where would you put them inside the fridge?
Sorry?
Where would you put documents inside the
Okay,
fridge?
so the question is referring to the Vial of Life program where you have documents inside the fridge. The reason we put them inside the fridge, usually what they do is, depending on the size of your documents, you get some kind of a container. And you put the documents in there, make sure it's sealed, because they have a better chance of surviving fires that way. So you go, and then firefighters are used to looking at the fridge. It's one of the things they kind of do, you know. And if you put a big sign that says documents in here, so what they recommend is well, maybe not so much the modern fridges, but a lot of the old fridges, your shelving was wire. So you would just take a big elastic band and just loop it through the rods, but you can just have it in a just right in the front or in the door, container that that says here we are, red or whatever, and then it have usually they used to have magnets with a big V that stood for Vial of Life that used to go right on there, so they would know where to look. So, and I think most fridges now have the glass. But something that's well indicated. So it's usually just in front or on the door. Well, this is my improvised artificial respiration thingy. Are we?
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Heather.
You're
Much
very welcome.
appreciated.
Thank you. Again, my apologies for going over time.
No problem. All right. We want to thank everybody for joining us. And just remember, next month we have Professor John Clegg doing a presentation on tsunamis in Georgia Strait. So anyways, thank you very much for your time, everybody. And that's a cut.